Shut it down. Shut it down. That's what President Donald Trump told the Democrats. If Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries want to come to the White House and make ridiculous demands just to keep the country open, Donald Trump says, we're not going to do that. We are not going to let you hold this country and the fine men and women who run it hostage. So Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries will be shutting down the government at midnight tonight because they're not getting money for illegal immigrants. The Schumer shutdown countdown is on. But before we get to that monumental meeting in the Oval Office, President Donald Trump had another monumental meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu, Bibi Netanyahu from Israel, who came to the White House to discuss President Donald Trump's perpetual peace plan to end the war in Gaza.
This afternoon, after extensive consultation with our friends and partners throughout the region, I'm formally releasing our principles for peace, which people have really liked, I must say. And these are done not just routinely done, these are done with total consideration and working with the nations that we're talking about. All of these nations have made contributions to those suggestions. I want to thank the leaders of many Arab and Muslim nations for their tremendous support in developing the proposal, along with many of our allies in Europe. Europe has been very much involved, and as I was called by many of the European leaders, most of them saying, is this true? Are you really doing peace in the Middle East? This is the most incredible thing we've heard. Some think it's the biggest thing they've ever heard. They called just to find out, was it just a rumor or is it actually done? And then they said, have you spoken to the Arab leaders? Have you spoken to all of the other leaders that we have to get? A lot of people involved in this one. I also want to thank Prime Minister Netanyahu for agreeing to the plan and for trusting that if we work together, we can bring an end to the death and destruction that we've seen for so many years, decades, even centuries, and begin a new chapter of security, peace, and prosperity for the entire region. And I want to just say that my meetings and dialogue that we had with so many countries, Saudi Arabia as an example, the king is a phenomenal person. The Emir of Qatar, these are incredible people. UAE, and that's MBZ and ABZ. We're totally involved. These are the people that we've been dealing with and who've been actually very much involved in this negotiation.
President Donald Trump has been working with every single Arab nation, every single Middle Eastern nation, every single European nation to bring together a peace plan, which will not only bring peace to the Middle East, but has concessions that are being made by Israel and Hamas, if they agree, that will really, settle any conflicts in the area for the long term. And with Israel on board, and with the United States on board, and with Qatar, and with Saudi Arabia, and with most of Europe on board, it seems now that the Hamas leaders are kind of backed into a corner. Everybody believes this is a great plan, and it's just now up to Hamas to accept it. If they do not, they will be painting themselves as warmongers and warlords who are simply just hungry for destruction and are not looking for any peaceful solution. And if that's the case, they will ostracize themselves from the rest of their quote-unquote allies in the Arab world, except for Iran, which we know is powerless and will soon be bankrupt thanks to President Donald Trump and the American military. But one of President Donald Trump's main tenets is not just to end the war, but to get the hostages, both those who are living and those who are deceased, released. And this plan, should Hamas agree to it, does exactly that.
If accepted by Hamas, this proposal calls for the release of all remaining hostages immediately, but in no case more than 72 hours. So the hostages are coming back, and I hate even saying this from the standpoint, doesn't sound right, but it is so important to the parents. The bodies of the young men, I believe in almost all cases, the young men are coming back immediately. I met with parents. The parents felt as strongly about getting the body of their dead boy back as they did as though the boy were alive and well. It's so important to them. And it means the immediate end to the war itself, not just Gaza. It's the war itself. Under the plan, Arab and Muslim countries have committed and in writing in many cases, but I actually would take their word for it. The people I mentioned, I'd take their word for it, to demilitarize Gaza, and that's quickly. Decommission the military capabilities of Hamas and all other terror organizations. Do that immediately. And we're relying on the countries that I named and others to deal with Hamas. And I'm hearing that Hamas wants to get this done too.
And then Gaza will be, of course, rebuilt. That was President Donald Trump's plan all along, was to demilitarize Gaza, get any and all of Hamas warriors out of Gaza, make sure that the weapons are gone, make sure it's a safe place, and then not leave it in shambles and rubble, but rebuild it into an economic and tourist center like no other, something that anybody around the world would be thrilled to go visit. The Riviera of the Middle East, he called it at one point. We don't know if that's the plan, but when you have these rich Arab nations like Qatar and Saudi Arabia and the UAE, and not to mention European nations and the United States of America all coming together, it seems like Gaza and the Gaza Strip are ripe for development and turning it from what it is now, which is basically a desert wasteland, into an economic center that the entire world can enjoy. And if the entire world is invested in it, you know that the entire world is going to make sure that it is safe. You're going to make sure that the entire world is setting the stage for no more conflicts so that they can protect their investments. And President Donald Trump is going one step further. He's saying there's another very important part of this plan, and it's, in a way, Donald Trump creating his own version of the UN.
To ensure the success of this effort, my plan calls for the creation of a new international oversight body, the Board of Peace, we call it, the Board of Peace, sort of a beautiful name, the Board of Peace, which will be headed, not at my request, believe me, I'm very busy, but we have to make sure this works. The leaders of the Arab world and Israel and everybody involved asked me to do this, so it would be headed by a gentleman known as President Donald J. Trump of the United States. That's what I want, is some extra work to do, but it's so important that I'm willing to do it, and we'll do it right, and we're going to put leaders from other countries on, and leaders that are very distinguished leaders, and we'll have a board, and one of the people that wants to be on the board is the UK former Prime Minister, Tony Blair. Good man, very good man.
So President Donald Trump is working on an alternative to the UN, because as we heard last week at the UN, when they sabotaged him and tried to trip him up on the escalator and then cut off his teleprompter, and oh yeah, there was no sound, so you couldn't hear all the words that he was saying. And when that happened, Donald Trump, I think, in his mind was like, look, this is not the body that's going to be promoting peace around the world. This body's corrupt. He's looking at the UN going, where were you when I was negotiating the end to wars around the world? Some wars that lasted for decades, 30, 37, 40 years. Where were you when I needed your help negotiating peace with all of these long-term battles in Asia and Europe and with Ukraine and with Hamas? Where were you? You were nowhere to be found. The UN does not have the uniting of nations, which is ironic, as their primary goal. That's not their mission anymore. So Donald Trump says that's what we need. We need an organization that is going to promote peace. We need an organization that is going to come in and say, yeah, look, peace is good. We should probably have it. And we're going to work together to make that happen. Steve Witkoff, the special envoy to the Middle East, was asked about this on the news, and they asked him, hey, is this going to actually, what makes this different this time? Why would this work?
You've dealt with all of these figures in that region. You know how tenuous this can be. One step forward, two steps back.
Yes.
You feel this one is different?
I do, because we have so much widespread support from all of the Gulf Coast Arab countries. We have widespread support from the Europeans. I just left a meeting with the British, talked to the French today. So we have a lot of support for the plan, a lot of buy-in. Do we have some details to work out? Yes, but you know President Trump as well as I do. With that indomitable spirit of his, everyone's going to be pushed by him, and I think we're going to get to the finish line.
Yeah, the indomitable spirit of President Donald Trump. Everyone's going to be pushed by him. We're going to get to the finish line. And at the end of the day, this will be another war that Donald Trump can notch in his bedpost. His bedpost? Yeah, he'll not, another notch in his peace pipe. Right? You know what? You know the thing. Hey, speaking of notches, we are notching ever closer to a government shutdown. In fact, President Donald Trump was asked about his meeting with Hakeem Jeffries and Senator Schumer at the end of this Gaza meeting. He said, "Look, I don't know what's going to happen, but it's coming up after this."
I'm meeting with, as you know, a couple of Democrats in a little while about the country, about keeping our country open. They're going to have to do some things because their ideas are not very good ones. They're very bad for our country. So we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, their ideas are not very good for our country. Their ideas are bad for their country. They have some ideas that I'm not really sure about. J.D. Vance was speaking after the meeting, which didn't go as well as anyone, I guess, had hoped. And J.D. Vance and Mike Johnson and what's his name, Senator Thune and everybody else with Russ Vought, they were all out there talking about the meeting. And J.D. Vance said these weren't just bad ideas. These ideas were crazy.
First of all, we have to keep essential services functioning as well as possible if the Democrats shut down the government, and Russ has been tasked with making sure that's possible. Now, you asked about negotiations. One of the things I admired about the president, but frankly the entire team's approach during the conversation we just had with Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries was, they have some crazy ideas. Giving taxpayer money to illegal aliens for health care, that's a crazy idea. Funding transgender surgeries in Peru, that's a crazy idea. But they had some ideas that I actually thought were reasonable, and they had some ideas that the president thought was reasonable. What's not reasonable is to hold those ideas as leverage and to shut down the government unless we give you everything that you want. There were multiple times where Leader Jeffries or Leader Schumer would say, you know what, we should be doing this. And the President of the United States would say, yeah, absolutely, let's have that conversation. But we're going to do it in the context of the people's government being open. We're not going to let you take the people's government hostage and then give you everything that you want. And that's really the state of the negotiation. Yeah, let's have a conversation. Let's have a negotiation. But we're not going to shut down the government because we won't give the Democrats everything that they want.
Yeah, and that was something that was echoed by everybody who was in the meeting and who came out to speak to the press, all of the Republicans. Mike Johnson was like, look, this counterproposal that they made is ridiculous. They're basically trying to claw back everything we've already agreed to.
Their counterproposal, what Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are demanding, is that they claw back the $50 billion that we put into the rural hospital support structure. They want to take that back. We're not going to do that. We passed that because we have to allow for that. Also, if they shut the government down, not only are troops unpaid, federal workers, and all the services that everybody relies upon, but the WIC program, the nutrition program, women, infant, and children, they will not get that program, will not be funded. FEMA won't be funded. We have hurricanes off the coast of the United States right now. This is serious business. You have telehealth, you have mental health services, all that's funded by the government would stop if Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries and the Democrats have their way. The Democrat shutdown would be damaging for the country. We can't allow for it.
And that's a good way to put it, the Democrat shutdown, because the Republicans are ready to keep the government open with no attachments. They're ready to keep the government open with a simple CR, a continuing resolution, which again, I'm no big fan of. I think they should do the job that they were, hired to do in the time allotted to do it. But a clean CR is better 100% than what the Democrats are requesting. And the clean CR, as John Thune points out, is exactly that. It doesn't give either side anything new. It just keeps the government going.
This right here, ladies and gentlemen, is what we're talking about. 24 pages. It's a continuing resolution to fund the government through November the 21st. I don't know where they're saying this is some huge partisan thing. This is something we do fairly routinely. And when the Democrats had the majority on 13 different occasions, they had the majority, President Biden was in the White House, we passed continuing resolutions to fund the government. This is purely and simply hostage-taking on behalf of the Democrats. The Republicans are united. House Republicans, Senate Republicans, President Trump. The House has passed a clean funding resolution to fund the government until November the 21st. It's clean, it is bipartisan, and it is short-term. But it gives us enough time to finish the appropriations process, which is the way we should be funding the government. So Republicans in the House, and the Senate, President united, they've passed the bill. This is sitting right now at the Senate desk. We could pick it up and pass it tonight. We could pick it up and pass it tomorrow before the government shuts down. And then we don't have a government shutdown. It is totally up to the Democrats because right now they are the only thing standing between the American people and the government shutting down. We're all in favor of funding the government. And this is something that's been done routinely 13 different times by the Democrats when they had the majority. So it's to me, it's purely a hostage-taking exercise on the part of the Democrats. We are willing to sit down and work with them on some of the issues they want to talk about, whether it's the extension of premium tax credits with reforms, we're happy to have that conversation. But as of right now, this is a hijacking of the American people, and it's the American people who are going to pay the price.
Yeah, hijacking of the American people, a hostage-taking situation. John Thune saying, all the Republicans, we're all on the same page. We're all for this. Well, except for Thomas Massie and Victoria Spartz and potentially Rand Paul. But everybody else on the Republican side is ready for it. They're all excited about it. They want it to happen. Russ Vaught has said, look, it's our job to keep the government open. And if the government shuts down because Chuck Schumer wants it shut down, if the government shuts down because Hakeem Jeffries wants it to shut down, if they want for some reason or for some option, they want, illegal immigrants to get all of our taxpayer dollars for healthcare. If that's what they're really hanging their hats on, then the government will be shut down so that the Democrats can try to aid and abet illegal immigrants. And that is something that is not very popular. So if the government shuts down, the Republic, we're well prepared, says Russ Vaught, to do what we need to. But just know that this is, there are some bad things that will happen, and we're going to hang it all on the heads of the Democrats.
We want to keep this government open. It is not good for the American people to have the government shut down for any period of time. We will manage it appropriately, but it is something that can all be avoided. It can all be avoided by accepting a reasonable position, which is what the House has passed and what sits at the Senate desk, which is to continue to fund the government with a short-term continuing resolution. It has never been a viewpoint that $1.5 trillion is a reasonable amount of spending to be included on a short-term CR. This is hostage-taking. It is not something that we are going to accept, and we hope that the Democrats come back from the brink, fund this government, and allow us to move forward. Thank you.
Yeah, we will see what happens. We will continue to watch the Democrats. We'll continue to watch President Donald Trump. We'll keep our eyes on the Oval Office, and we will report back as Shutdown Watch continues with our second daily podcast, Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. Every single day, we bring you all the latest news, all the latest commentary, more information about what's going on in Washington, D.C. and everywhere else. And if you have not yet found your platform to enjoy Mark Kaye Saves the Republic, it's easy to do. Best thing you can do is go to markkaye.com, MarkKaye.com. Click the big red button that says, I want the podcast. Find your favorite platform, whether it's a video streaming platform or a podcast delivery platform. Click the subscribe button, download, listen, and enjoy.